Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Here is a quote just for this podcast. I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundations of the world. Matthew 13:35. We are back, part three of four of the preparation for the Dr. Jordan B. Peterson interview. I'm attempting to live out in real time a quote that I admire greatly by Abraham Lincoln. If I have 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend 4 hours sharpening my blade. So, in the previous two episodes, I shared some of the questions that have been prepared for this conversation that could be contextually relevant for our audience at the American Gift Conference, a community focused on the American gift, also known as the American dream, having to do with home ownership, what it takes to actually act out, well, self-realize the opportunity of what our great culture has to offer to us in home ownership, interview and partner with the advisors necessary to actually make that dream come true or that gift actually happen. What is the gift for those of us that have it in our great culture, and for those that are outside of our culture? It's just a dream. It's just something that is just out of reach. The American Gift Conference brings professionals from all over the country together every year to celebrate home ownership and to share best practices, philosophy, create relationships, lifelong relationships, and have the opportunity to experience powerful speakers and thought leaders in various domains. And to honor this great conference and community, I have done have invested time in due diligence to ask the best questions that were contextually relevant to our audience. And then I thought, what better way to prepare just a little bit more and show a little bit more of who I am and my process when I go through preparing for interviews on the Culture Matters podcast. If you listen to the show regular, you know the purpose of the Culture Matters podcast: to uncover the genius of our guest with the goal to make curiosity cool. That takes a lot of work offline, cameras off. Guest has not yet shown up to the show. Conversation hasn't yet started. And there's a process that I go through the culture map to actually prepare for each of our guests, whether they've been on once or 100 times, to reflect upon their background, their biography, their experiences, their education, the subject matter that they speak on, and they position themselves on and offline to be a value add in. As host, I take the time, I invest the time to do the research, to do the due diligence, so that I can ask the best questions possible on the show. And the same thing would work offline as well. Something like an event where I'm having this interview with Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. I broke down the questions that I believe I'm going to ask. Of course, that could change, just like already some things have changed going through this process. Actually being here at the event, it's June 4th in the late afternoon, having just observed a gathering of attendees who shared questions and concerns and curiosities, and a tremendous amount of insight and wisdom and experience that was shared in the room has already influenced the questions and how I may alter some of them, change, take, omit others. I'm hoping that this process of sharing the questions that I have written down that I think would be contextually relevant to the audience, borrowing on the years of study of Peterson's literature, um, that actually showing this and answering the questions from Peterson's standpoint, from my interpretation of what his standpoint would be a valuable, would help me prepare, be fun, and then there would be lessons and interesting things to think about for you, the listener, as you get to know me more behind the scenes and my process of how we do these shows and maybe learn a couple things along the way. So some of the questions that we covered in part one and two, if you haven't listened to those parts, that I intend to ask Dr. Peterson, and I gave his takes on probably what the line of thinking that he'd go upon up to this point was, how does home ownership impact our culture, and why is this profession meaningful based on your study of culture, society, and governance? What contribution do those that facilitate and participate in housing provide to a culture? Which rules would you advise our audience to pay attention to? Giving examples from his books. What happens when professionals in the room stop caring about what they do and working towards the benefit of their customers? How can infighting within an industry disrupt the function or utility of its purpose and for customers? How do you rectify that? How can self-sacrifice provide value to a customer relationship in your estimation? Where does self-improvement, for example, through the past, present, future authoring program, Peterson Academy, fit in the evolution and maturity of establishing functional business relationships in your mind, if at all? And how could you advise the relationship between broker and account executive aligning as one team so that ultimately the borrower is successful? That was part one and part two. Part three is, how does a partnership work long term? That's the topic. Like, so I'm looking at what is the American gift? Why is it meaningful? How could it be easily overlooked? The impact that professionals make in this space of home ownership, the sacrifices and the value that they bring to our culture every day. That was part one. Part two is like, how do what is a broker? What is an account executive? How do they work together? And but part three is, what is partnership? And how do you actually how does a partnership work long term? So the first question originally wrote down was, who should one be looking for in a partner? Now, it's interesting about that question was immediately I thought, upon reflecting after having written the questions out, more flow of consciousness from, synthesizing what I have come to learn about the mortgage industry and the different job descriptions and the roles and responsibilities within them, and of course studying maps of meaning for the tenure that I have and so on. It hit me when I was reflecting on this part in preparation, in reflection, that that's actually not the right question. That's in a sense a bad question. Implicit in that question is um, is a projection or an abdication of responsibility. It's not the right question to ask. It's more so of, who do I have to be as a partner? Who do I have to be? So the first question was, who should one be looking for in a partner? And I actually, upon reflection, before even reading question two again, it was, who should one be? That's the wrong question to ask. When people ask that question, it's like I'm looking outside, not inside. And oftentimes what happens with um, when it comes to building, when it comes to relationship building, we look at the outside versus in the mirror. We look outside to others versus what could I do better? So question two, interestingly enough, was, because I think Dr. Peterson would say that. I think he would say it's not the right question to ask. It's like looking for the right partner, whether that's a life partner or that's a business partner. It's, how do I have to show up to actually be that right partner? Buffett and Munger would say they're looking for integrity, intelligence, and energy. And that integrity, intelligence, and energy, I believe, has been demonstrated through the career of actually showing up every day and continuing to read, to study, to not do business with people that to not do business with in a way that was short-sighted, that in a way that contradicted the values of the organization. It's actually looking at oneself and asking, and this is question two, what expectations should one have on oneself when it comes to being a value add partner? What expectations should one have when it comes to being a value add partner? I think it's like that saying, rules for thee and not for me. If the expectation in our organization is collaboration, which in culture matters, give first, intend to help, and get started today. How am I giving? And how am I asking? How much am I giving and how much am I asking? And in what order are they? Am I asking too much and giving too little? Am I giving too much and asking too little? And in what balance are those? Ultimately, it can be hard to actually audit ourselves, and that's where um, asking for feedback, asking our partners for feedback, asking our spouses for feedback, asking our employees for feedback, asking our customers for feedback. Someone worthy partnering with will be open to asking for feedback and able to actually take it in a way that's not defensive. Standing up straight with our shoulders back is about recognizing that idea. Um, Treating ourselves like someone we're responsible for helping is about looking in the mirror and taking responsibility and saying, what in my life is in disarray and what can I do about it? That's something as subtle as cleaning one's room versus leaving it messy. Or as Brad Liu comes on the show sometimes would say, brush your teeth. Something as subtle as brushing your teeth and having good breath in a business meeting can make all the difference. So the idea of aiming up, you might know what it is you need to work on. The question is, are you humble enough to work on it? Someone that I was just observing a gathering on day pre-day. So this is the day before the event. And it shout out to Jason Frazier and Christine Beckwith and Hammer and Jonathan Haddad and a lot of the other great speakers that gathered a whole cadre of attendees of the American Gift Conference and we're sharing best practices, Darren Copeland and so many more. I've 40 some odd pages of notes. And one of the things that was shared by Jonathan Haddad, who's a guest of the Culture Matters podcast, a friend of the Culture Matters podcast, was I wrote it. It was so powerful. It was, if you want to find out who you actually are, tell your kids, tell your spouse, and tell your employees on Sunday in an email, I guess separate emails, what you're going to do that week. This is what I'm going to do this week. And this is where it ties into what I think Peterson would say, and like the partner that you'd expect. What expectations should you have on oneself when it comes to being a value-add partner? So send this email to the one email to your kids, one email to your wife. This is what Haddad said. One email to your employees. This is everything I'm going to do for the company this week, or this is what I'm going to do for myself and the company, or maybe both. And then a week goes by, and then whatever you didn't do, you have to email all those parties and say, this is why I didn't do all the things that you didn't do. Like he was mentioning that we're 90% more likely to do something if we have a partner, if someone else is involved in that. It's the power of accountability. Uh, I've shared on the Culture Matters podcast with frequency the distinction between responsibility and accountability. Responsibility is modeled. So this is where the Peterson comes in. And accountability is given in speech or taken in action. I think Dr. Peterson would say, what expectations? Yeah, he'd say, if I asked him, who should one be looking for in a partner? He'd say, get a mirror. It's the wrong question. It's who do I have to be in actions? Because oftentimes they'll say, what do you mean by believe? Is it what you say? Is it what you think? Or is it what you're doing? It's what expectations should one have on oneself? That's a better question. What expectations should one have on oneself when it comes to being a value add partner? And I think he would talk about rule four. Notice notice that uh, opportunity. Oh my God! Notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. It might be scary. You might have a, a feeling of fear when things are out of disorder. But if you actually re reorient yourself towards that aim, towards that goal, and actually do the extra work. So, like an example in that chapter was if someone is slacking off above you in the organization and not doing their job, you could bow out and just disengage and say, forget it, I'm not even going to try anymore. Or you could show up early and you could leave late. If you could put in more work and actually take their job. Or or you can actually do all the right things and then you get let go of the organization, but you're going to be better for it in the next organization. Or if you're not working for a company, you're an entrepreneur. We work for our customers when we're entrepreneurs. And if we don't like how our customers are showing up for us, it isn't getting disengaged and doing less. It's having the direct conversation, leaning into the conflict. Don't avoid it, embrace it so it doesn't multiply. And if we're engaged as an entrepreneur and we're making the outbound calls that need to happen, we're marketing ourselves out in the world and we're acting out that we believe in what we believe, then we'll grow through the hard times. Things might go up, things will go up and then they'll go down, but our spirit has to go up proportionate to the down for things to go back up again. Not only back up again, way up again. That is a mind screw because when we're in it, we can become overwhelmed by the anxiety. And that's where having a new goal is. That's where having a plan. And then that's where humility and courage come in. That's where courage comes in. That's where this is the whole part of Rule 8. Tell the truth or at least don't lie. So, what expectation should one have in oneself when it comes to being a value add partner? Follow Rule 8 and beyond order, which is take responsibility for what you can do. Fill out your job description, find other things to do, and do those things too. Act out your values. Rule 7, work as hard as you possibly can at least one thing and see what happens. Go all in. Put in the work, make the sacrifices. Don't check out and bow out. Example, right now in the mortgage industry, it's a different paradigm. There are different, there's opportunity and it's going to be more competitive. There's more people and there's less opportunity, or the opportunity has changed. It was just discussed in this mastermind on the pre-day of the shout out. It was called, it was just discussed how general populace of consumers have a tremendous amount of personal debt. There's a lot of equity in homes, and there's a great opportunity to actually refinance, probably many of you that are listening to this. But instead of people calling the professional, which would naturally happen when times are high, 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 high. There's a lot of activity from consumer to industry. There's a lot of proactivity from consumer to industry. So industry is reacting. Salespeople are reacting. Operation people are reacting to salespeople. Sales is reacting. It's converting conversations. Now, if the consumers they're stuck, there's less proaction from consumers. That infers there needs to be more proaction from salespeople, proaction from professionals, and proaction from professionals when times are tougher, expenses are higher, and there's less business. That means it's going to have to come from courage and spirit and the culture and leadership, showing what they expect of others, actually sacrificing and working in the trenches and making it happen and taking on more risk potentially because it might not work out. And when that happens, though, the opportunities are seized. But that's where leaders come in. So I think the expectation one should have, how does one have a long-term partner? It would say, where are your partners when the tides go out? Because if you're naked and your partner isn't there to throw a towel over you, then they're not a partner. What I didn't discuss enough in part 1 and 2 was the relationship between the loan officer and the realtor. I was overly emphasizing a relationship between an account executive from a wholesale standpoint and a loan officer. And that is such an important partnership for the account executive to make the loan officer to look amazing. So the loan officer can be amazing for the realtor who's that liaison between that home and the borrower for a large portion of the market that's not direct to consumer. It's borrower and realtor, and the realtor has to trust that if they're on the buy side, the culture side, because the culture is built in the buy side, I believe Dr. Peterson would say, because the foundation of our Western culture is this goes back to the meaning conversation property rights, the right to have property, and the right to develop our individual agency from that property. So the buyer buying a home, that's a spiritual act, or it's a Western act. It's a it's an act of responsibility. There's more obligations, there's more pressure, there's more responsibility on the homeowner to level up. The first time they ever do it, they're going to be a different person than they were prior to doing it. And it's deeply embedded into our culture and has a very significant meaning to our culture in the West. So the the that process that comes with anxiety, that comes with ignorance, that comes with many lessons learned the hard way on the consumer side, they need strong advisors. And the realtor is relying on their partner on the loan origination piece. They have to be partners to one another. And it seems as though there's this natural tension between these two, parties that's going to ultimately exist because there are things out of both of their control that they can't guarantee what the future will bring, but they'll have to be able to respond to obstacles and how they communicate with one another and how they do what they say they're going to do, how they're there for one another in the hardest times is going to reveal the success of their business. So, for example, if right now the realtors are suffering and I'm a loan officer and I've been building my business with these realtors that have been sending me their customers for years and they're not doing that well, I need to check in on them. I need to stay in touch with them. I shouldn't go silent ghost on them. I should see how I can help them and what's going on and the same goes for the account executive to the loan originator. It's like, where are these people? How are they doing? I think the one thing we shouldn't underestimate is that when the tide goes out, your partners are there with a towel to make sure you're not seen naked, you're not swimming naked. And then when the tide comes back, you're arm in arm. You're going to be swimming together. You're latching on to each other when that tsunami's coming in the shore, and you're going to get farther and inland together. So when times are tough, the people that are there with us when times are tough are going to be rewarded financially and socially. It's those relationships. The meaning is going to be there. The memories are going to be there. And so much of what we see is actually memory. I learned that in how to, I think it was lecture 9 of 9 in Peterson Academy in the personality and transformation. It was in the beginning because I just rewatched that much of what we actually see visually is memory. So so think about the relationships that we have with the people in our lives. If what we value is demonstrated in what we pay attention to, and so much of what we see is memory. If we have a client that we've been serving, I'm a loan officer, I've been working with this realtor I consider them a partner because we share clients. Their clients are our clients. And they bring it to us. Like, I got to do the best job possible to get more clients from them. This is a partnership, and we've got to weather the storms together. It's not leaving them high and dry, it's being there when they're at their worst. Sometimes a relationship won't even want you there at their worst. There's so much past conflicts. There's shame, there's guilt, there's fear, there's resentment, there's arrogance, there's false pride. But how about being there despite all that and trying to work through the problems with them? Be that type of person. Because if you are, The world will pay you dividends for who you are in real time, not who you say you are or who you think you are. I think that's how Peterson would argue being a great partner is, or yeah, how does a long-term partnership work? You got to be that great partner yourself. Don't wait to share tough information. Don't avoid doing the things that you said you were going to do for your partners. Get them done. As Nietzsche used to do in the morning when he woke up, he thought about what is the number one thing that I could avoid right now, or that I don't want to do. The hardest thing I could possibly do that I have to do. When Nietzsche woke up, Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche woke up in the morning, he said, I will do the hardest thing that I have to do first thing in the morning. That's like a character building exercise. I can think of something right now that I didn't do right now as I did this exercise that I am putting off that I have to get done. Oh my, wow. Just now, blew into my mind. What a powerful exercise. So, rule, yeah, so what expectations should have one on self when it comes to being a value add partner? Rule 11, do not, this is a heavy one. Let yourself become, don't play victim. Resentful, don't play the victim. Don't omit. Have direct communication. Because if you don't, it'll grow, it'll become harder to have it, and then it'll be even less likely to happen. Assume that the person you are listening to knows something that you don't. The power of listening. Put your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. What else can, just like Nietzsche said, hey, what can I do? That's the hardest thing. Let me get that done in the morning. And um, question 3. Upon reflection of 40,000 plus hours of clinical work in the field with patients, what variables would you say upset, disrupt, or undermine partnerships in business? I think the biggest thing Dr. Peterson would say upset partnerships in business is forgetting to do the things that were done in the beginning. The less consistent and direct communication is, the less likely people are on the same page. The less likely people are on the same page, right? What's the story that we're actually acting out? This is where the vision comes in. What are we actually building? Why are we building it? How do we think we're building it? And what expectation do we have of on one another to actually make this successful? Are we both working at it as hard as we possibly can? Because if we're not, trust is going to start to decay. And those conversations, sometimes they take third parties to actually come in and help have those conversations. And if you're in a partnership right now and you're a business partnership right now and you're not having those conversations and you're not bringing in third parties to facilitate and help you, ask yourself why not, and ask yourself what 5 years from now, if we don't talk about what's necessary, where are we? And the two biggest things that break up small business are business divorces and actual divorces. Business divorces are the company was nothing and now it's something, and we're not on the same page. We want different things. We're not sure of what the next level is or how to get there. We're just working 75 bajillion hours every week and we're burnt toast. That's going to come from a lack of, and this is where aim up, a lack of vision, a lack of strategy, a lack of communication. The the rituals aren't happening. We're not meeting often enough in the right way of high quality. We're unclear on what we stand for and who we are as an organization. We're just reacting to the day to day. We're not having the real conversations. There isn't enough truth, as Nietzsche said. An individual's character is revealed in how much truth they can handle. I was paraphrasing that quote. How much truth someone can handle is it reveals their relationship. So I think in respect to the realtor and the loan officer, one thing that I've observed in the industry is it's easy for Instead of, this is rule 12 in Beyond Order. Be grateful in spite of your suffering. The loan officers that are grateful for their realtors, that are grateful that they have that honor and that respect. This is a tough thing. What if those past relationships are not honoring and respecting you? If you don't say anything, they're not going to read your mind because your perception of their honor and their respect might not be them intentionally disrespecting you. It might be them unwittingly disrupting the culture, unwittingly, unintentionally disrespecting you because they're in their own state of fight or flight. They have their own demons that they're battling that you may or may not even know about. The question is, how well have you been an ear? How honest are you being about how you feel? And how respectful are you being? So the conversation is get flipped on one's head. How does one, how does a partnership work for the long term? Both parties are fighting for the relationship more than they're fighting for the money. They're fighting for the future success of one another versus the short-term benefit of each. It's a true partnership. It's not, it's something that things are going to go wrong. Feelings are going to be hurt. Things are going to be done that were unintentionally um, that unintentionally were done that hurt either party. That's just life. But it takes integrity, enthusiasm, and intelligence to show up every day and leave it all on the table. I think a big part of it is having a long-term orientation. If I have a long-term, I'm going into this relationship, whether it's with a realtor, if I'm a loan officer, whether it's an account executive, whoever the vendor is, am I looking them as a vendor or am I looking them as a relationship that could provide the resources and help inspire the reasons for me to get up every morning and make things happen? I'm going to be the one that's proactive. I'm going to be the one that has a plan. I'm going to be the one that sacrifices. I'm going to be the one that works just a little bit extra. I'm going to be the one that asks for feedback and expects honesty, expects information that isn't necessarily going to make me feel good. And I'm going to continue to work on myself. I'm going to listen to podcasts like this. I'm going to come to communities or conferences and be a part of communities where people are focused on sharing best practices, sharing what works, sharing what doesn't work. And I'm not gonna use the communities as a distraction from my responsibilities. I'm gonna use them as um, an anchor of my responsibilities. They're a feedback loop of accountability. They're holding me to account. I'm not going to the next conference if I haven't done what I said I was going to do. I'm not putting myself on stage if I'm not living up to who I believe I should be living up to. I'm not just going to be talking to talk. If I do open my mouth, it's going to be because I have something to say, not just because I need to say something. And personally, I have felt that. I have come from that, and um, I it's a priceless feeling to open your mouth and feel uh, when you have something to say versus feeling unheard and needing to be heard because you just aren't getting it done. You just aren't living up to expectations. It's, I'm going to speak because I've been asked what I think versus I'm going to speak because I need people to hear what I think. I'm going to show you what I think in how I live. I'm going to show you what I think and how we show up for this show. I'm going to show you what I think and how successful our company is. I'm going to show you what I think and how successful our customers are because they prove how successful our company is. So I think Peterson would remind us that the long-term partnership starts with how responsible we are, how self-serving we are versus self-sacrificing, how clear our goals are. Does our work ethic live up to our vision and our mission and the words that we share on and offline. Um, how integrated are we? And that our personal and our social co- parts of ourself impact that. And have we been educated to our degree of ambition? How good are we actually? One of the things that I'll end on this is that the culture today, it's like, how can I get this now? It takes years to become an expert. Jordan might not say this himself, or maybe he would. Like, I might have to say it for him. He was working on maps of meaning from 84 to 99, like 3 hours a day. There was no fame in that. There was no following that. That's one of the things I admire about him as us. That's one of the things I admire about him as a teacher, as an entrepreneur, um, a leader, is that he and a human. I mean, I admire that to work on something that consistently. And there's many people that will never get the acclaim or recognition that are working like that right now, that the world can take for granted and overlook. And at one point, that's what I'm admiring, is that he definitely was one of those people. And the if that's not meaningful enough for me to work hard on something and know that I did, and it be something that lights me up, or you or whoever's listening to this, it's like work on something that lights you up, that you're curious about, the way culture matters, and all of this has been for me. um that in itself should be the prize, should be the award, should be the win. And a consequence of all that is now all this recognition. Some random guy on the internet is talking about and doing this whole series, this preparation for this conversation, this online student that's, one of many millions. I'm talking about somebody that just decided to drink less alcohol, read more, write more, uh, pursue an idea, outline it, think through it, teach it, learn it, argue for it. There's so many great teachers out there that are doing that will never get recognition, beyond the students that they help every day. And God bless them for doing it. So, and if you're one of those people, God bless you as well, because you're probably a great partner for somebody out there. Because if you're constantly learning, saying what you say you're going to do, and um, exceeding the expectations of the people that rely on you, that's pretty damn good. And when you fall short, if you can admit that to yourself and then rectify it, the conscience is going to be a little bit more clear, and you'll be able to see a little bit more clearly, and your vision will be a little bit broader. And who knows, you might end up changing the world, or maybe you already have and you don't even recognize it. So, no matter where you are, that's the impact each of you can make. And that's what we're trying to do here on the Culture Matters podcast. I feel like I've outstayed my welcome on my own show. Look out for, I'm not sure why. Um, that's the power of rewatching these. Go listen to part one of this preparation, tag preparation podcast. Go listen to part two. Part one was tag, why is home ownership meaningful? Part two is what is the broker? What is the account executive? And this is how does a partnership work long term? And the cool thing about this whole preparation, I'm doing this so that I can prepare mentally to have the questions, like, I can't explain it. It's like inside of me. So I'm not reading off of that. I could just be present and kind of read the audience and make it be like a instigate thought or inspire thought, explore openly. And this is how I prepare before every interview. on the Culture Matters podcast. I make sure to put a lot of work beforehand so that when we're in it, it can be exploratory and real and not canned. And I believe that's the reason I actually enjoy it. And the our listeners enjoy them too. They like following the conversation of where it's going to go, and it's shown in the listening time. So I hope that's helpful too from a preparation standpoint and a behind the scenes look at the Culture Matters podcast and how we have such engaging conversations with new guests or repeat guests. Please share this with a friend and look out for part 4, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.